All right, let's enter the draft. Let's do it. Again, we have
zero. So okay, Kevin, are we gonna do trade? Like if Olave slides till in this draft, let's say 28 or 29, are we gonna attempt it? Like, are we just going straight through, or are we just just burning through it?
We can see. Let's see. We can try a trade if we want. So let's bump up the speed on this a little bit. Start draft. So again, we're going through the first round now, starting with the Jacksonville Jaguars, and we have no control over any of these things that are occurring here in the first round. The Lions just took Sauce Gardner. I don't know if they're going to take a cornerback in the top 3 again after what happened with Jeff Okudah a few years ago. I think they'd be wise.
He could still be good.
He could still be good, but I think they'd be wise not to do that again. Kyle Hamilton at 10 to the Jets. The first wide receiver off the board to the Washington football team at 11. Drake London, back-to-back. 3 wide receivers in a row. 3 wide receivers in a row.
London to the Vikings would be scary. I would not love that.
This is where I think Chris Olave is going to get taken to the Eagles right here at 18. Nope. So
we'll see. So pause this for a second. Okay, so yeah, go up for a second. Malik Willis was the first quarterback taken, right?
Yeah, Malik Willis at 16.
At 16. So that's surprising because a lot of people think that Pickett is not going to make it past the Panthers or the Falcons, which is, I mean, I could see
Willis.
it.
I mean, I think it's a toss.
Right, or Willis, right. Agreed.
So, but I think the interesting thing here that obviously, like, if you are a Bears fan watching the draft a week from today, just because you're a fan of the NFL and you're going to watch, like we're all going to watch the draft, although the Bears don't have a first round pick, you're obviously looking at the quantity of wide receivers taken in the first 32 picks. That's the only thing you're looking for if you're the Chicago Bears. Not only for the absolute pipe dream that Chris Olave could fall out of the first round, but also you don't want a guy like George Pickens or Jahan Dotson, or if you're a lover of Sky Moore, to go up into the first round because so many wide receivers were taken before, say, like pick 26. So when you look at a mock draft like this right now, and you look at pick 11, Washington football team, Garrett Wilson, pick 12, Minnesota, Drake London out of USC, and then pick 13, Jameson Williams out of Alabama to the Texans, 3 straight wide receivers. If you see that on draft night, if you're a Bears fan, I mean, you're shitting your pants, are you not?
I disagree. I think if you're a Bears fan, you love how this is going for you because only one quarterback taken, and he wasn't until 16. Because think about it, like Willis is the first one. Pickett's still going to go. Ritter is probably, could sneak into the first round as well for a team that wants to get that extra 5th-year option. And then, like, you could even see a 4th one sneak in there. So how this is shaken out so far, I think if you're a Bears fan, this is exactly what you want because there's a chance that a Chris Olave falls more into tradable range or someone like Jahan Dotson falls to the 2nd round.
So it's weird because you've been talking a lot about how the quarterbacks affect this. Tell me more about why you think the quarterbacks have such an effect on what happens with the Bears.
Well, look at the Justin Fields effect.
You just think that run on quarterbacks happens? Or?
Right. I mean, look at what happens when guys are Trey Lance going 3rd right after Zach Wilson. Like that started a domino effect. Okay, Mac Jones and Justin Fields are started. Okay, then the Lions didn't take him. Okay, then the Panthers didn't take him. Okay, now as these guys start to slide and other teams are like, okay, these guys are getting in tradable range. And this is where the Bears really are in a very, very advantageous position. You have your guy. You're good for the next 2 to 3 years at least. We hope longer, obviously, but for at least this year and the next, if not the next 2 after this season, you're good. You don't have to be in that position where you're sweating. You're like, okay, like everyone admits and acknowledges that this quarterback class is not very good. It's not good at all. It's not, there isn't a Trevor Lawrence. There isn't even a Zach Wilson or Justin Fields. There isn't someone who you're dying to take. Everyone's like, yeah, Kenny Pickett, okay, he could be good. Okay, Malik Willis, yeah, he put up big numbers, but it was at Liberty. Desmond Ridder, okay, Cincinnati. Matt Corral kind of showed something, but then he fell apart. Like
you make a good point.
Everyone there. Anyway, it's like, but there's still these teams where if you're going to take a shot on one of these quarterbacks, if you're the Falcons at the end of the round and Desmond Ridder sitting there, that 5th year is very prioritized among teams because it means a lot because that's one less year that you have to pay for in a quarterback's prime. It happened with Lamar Jackson with the Ravens. He was sitting there in the last pick of the first round. They said, all right, we got to get this guy now and get that extra option here. So I think at this point, when there's only one quarterback taken, you're going to see teams start to get antsy, especially like the Steelers at 20.
I see where you're coming from now.
Like I would be very surprised.
Come on, Jake.
The Steelers at 20, or if they don't watch, it'll be Pickett right now.
Come on. Let's see. So the question too, we're paused here for those listening here with the Saints who have yet to pick at pick 19. Chris Olave is not on the board, or is on the board. He's not
Still
off
on
the
the board.
board yet. He's still on the board. And the question is really for Bears fans, when would you be comfortable making that trade? And I think it would have to be past 25. I'm not
Yeah,
giving up enough assets to
agreed.
get up to 19. That's going to require a lot. It would have to be a significant fall. But let's resume and see what happens to the Saints here at 19, and they're going to take Olave. So
Okay.
in a majority of mock drafts, I will say before we move on, I've seen Olave go in the top 20. Now, the only scenario that I could see happening is a mirror of what happened in 2018. Well, I think it was 2018 with Justin Jefferson and Jalen Reagor, where
Mhm.
for some reason, someone loves something about Jalen Reagor. In that case, it was the Philadelphia Eagles, or in this case, someone loves something about God knows who, Pickens, right? And says, oh, we
Sure.
really like the raw athleticism of Pickens. Let's take him. And then, Chris Olave falls. In that case, you might be in a position around 25 to move for him, but not at 19 or 20.
Sure.
It's too early. So let's move on, though. I'm going to speed this up a little bit because I think we were kind of just waiting there to see what happened to Olave. And now we'll get a little bit quicker up to 39 where the Bears
see,
have
and now here's the thing, like this doesn't have any like trades happening. Like this is, and there's Kenny Pickett to the Lions, like at the end of the round there.
Oh, there's
like,
Treylon
there
Burks.
goes Treylon Burks.
The Jets, and Pickens taking to the Jets at 38. Before us at 39.
You're taking Jahan Dotson here.
So
you have to.
You have to. But I will make the case for one player that I did a lot of research on that I'm starting to really, really like. But he does play defense. That player would be Jalen Petrae. Jalen Petrae,
okay.
I don't know if it's Petrae or Petrae.
Petrae.
I can see Matt.
I could get on board with that.
Loving Jalen Petrae. You remember Kenny Moore from the Colts?
Sure.
He is exactly what Jalen Petrae would be for the Chicago Bears. Kenny Moore played sort of that safety slot corner role for the Colts, blitzed really well. That's exactly what Jalen Petrae is. He can line up anywhere in the box. He's a coverage, but he's a coverage defender, but he's also an edge rusher. Some people have him listed as safety. PFF has him listed as cornerback. It's because he can do both. He's a ball hawk. He's a very good blitzer. He's kind of like a Jamal Adams in that sense as far as the versatility that he can play, who was a 2021 Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year, but he does primarily play in slot. I think he's exactly what Matt Eberflus would want, but the age-old question for the Bears, at least the month-old question is, Ben, would you be comfortable abandoning offense with that first-round pick? If it's a player as good as Jalen Petrae, I might be comfortable doing that.
I mean, in this situation, so like go to the wide receivers real quick. So who's available in this situation.
Let's filter.
Because obviously you have a pick here 9 picks later. Mm-hmm. I mean, at this point, it just depends on how you rate. Like, if you're the Bears, if you're right, like, because I'm with you, I could totally see Matt Eberflus banging the table saying we need Petrae. There's like, especially if you're saying, all right, we believe in Brian Pringle and we believe in Equinome St. Brown. So we can
don't believe in them.
Well, but regardless, saying like, let's say that, okay, we think that we can do something with John Mechie or Christian Watson in the 3rd round, or we think we could get Ross in the 4th or 5th, or, in the 3rd. If Petrie's not going to come around. There's not another Petrae in this draft. They might be saying, okay, there's another Jahan Dotson or Jalen Tolbert later in this draft that we can get. There's not another Petrae. So you know what? If we want to take Petrae here, I think I'm okay with that.
I'm fine with it too, because so what's interesting here, actually, in every mock draft simulation, every mock draft ever, the ADP is different. Certain players have, or certain people have players going higher or lower. This one's really weird. That PFF has Jalen Tolbert ranked ahead of Jahan Dotson, but Jahan Dotson's ADP is 38. His average draft position is 38. He hasn't been taken. Christian Watson's ADP is 52. So if you see a situation where, like, the thing I'm looking at right now, when I'm looking at, for the listeners on the podcast, what we have available at 39 is Jalen Tolbert out of South Alabama, Jahan Dotson out of Penn State, John Mechie out of Alabama, Christian Watson, of course, Calvin Austin, Alec Pearson. Those guys are available a little bit further down as far as their ADP goes. I think because you have 9 picks apart from each other, like, regardless of what happens, if you're telling me you could either get Jalen Tolbert, Jahan Dotson, or Christian Watson at 48,
you're going to have a chance. Yeah,
I'm
there's
content
value
with any of those guys at 48. But I think you're right about, look, you might not find another Jalen Petrae later. You can find a Justin Ross in the 4th round. Let's go with Jalen Petrae, which is so funny because if you listened to this podcast a week ago, you would have thought there's no way in hell we're taking a player aside from wide receiver. We're going Jalen Petrae at 39, and I'm pretty damn happy about it. And you have to remember, like, you got to find these players.
And then 2 quarterbacks just went. Like, you're still going to have – there you go. I mean, you still – Jahan Dotson went to the Vikings, which, I mean –
scares me. I think he's a
that's probably not going to happen though. If they take, because they took what's his face in the first round.
They don't need 2 wide receivers, and the Vikings.
That's not going to happen.
Drake London, right?
Yeah, there's no shot. You have Jefferson and Thielen, and you have London. You're not taking Jahan Dotson there.
But I will say, I don't think, like, regardless of who took him in the mock draft, I don't think Jahan Dotson falls to 48, which is
I agree.
Which is the risk you run when you take a cornerback like we did is, maybe the guys you really want, maybe, people are super high on Christian Watson. Oh shit. Maybe the Seahawks take Christian Watson.
But this is exactly what I mean when I talk about the quarterbacks. Cause I mean, look at the Seahawks take Howell and the Falcons take Ritter here.
Right.
I mean, that drops some of these guys. I mean, that drops Dotson and the Vikings. Like it's going to have an effect. Like the quarterbacks, and how much people, front offices like or dislike these guys is going to have an effect on this draft. That begs the question: do we want to because I think you have to go receiver here. I don't think you can
because we know about go ahead.
No, so it's just do you go with Tolbert? Do you take the swing on Watson? Like, do you go with the upside of Watson? I think maybe. So, the thing is, I don't know how much wiggle room to have to take a swing on upside here, which is why I made the argument last week of waiting for Ross until maybe the 4th round.
So, yeah, and you make a really good point because until we played this out in the simulation, I didn't really think about this. Like, I don't love Christian Watson. I don't love Jalen Tolbert. I almost like John Mechie more than both of them as far as the value you would get from where you get them. But the risk or the problem that plays out is, okay, we know the ability and we like Calvin Austin, who could be there in the 3rd round with the 3rd round pick. We like Justin Ross, who we know could be available in the 5th round potentially, or in the 4th round if they trade down. Will you be willing to take the risk of, hey, we don't love Tolbert or Watson. Let's go interior offensive line and hope and pray to God Calvin Austin is there in the 3rd round and hope one of the other wide receivers falls to us. Will they be willing to take that risk? Well, that is the by far biggest position of need. I don't know. So that's the age-old question. I've said that twice now in this episode. Position of need or best player available. Like, do you reach or do you take the risk on a Watson or a Tolbert who, played at smaller schools, who haven't done it at the highest level, just because you need a wide receiver? What do we do?
And do you think you get Mechie later?
Yeah.
Who's on the board for offensive linemen still? Inner offensive line, because you're not going to take a tackle here.
Yeah, let me go inner offensive. I don't think they're taking a tackle at all until the 5th round. Dylan Parham is available, who's a name that
I have heard. Cole Strange is a name that I've heard a lot.
Those guys are projected to be
right. They're not projected for this high.
I think if you are thrust into this situation like we have here, you have to take wide receiver regardless. I'm sorry. I think you have to. I really, really do. I mean, Jake, my outlook on the draft coming into this is at least 2 wide receivers throughout the whole thing. And I think you run thin on that if you don't take one now. I think they have to. And I think in this case, Watson's the best of the 3. I think John Mechie is the best of the 3. But there's the injury concerns about John Mechie, which make it more of a risk to take at 48. And his ADP is 71.8. I think Watson is the play at 48 if that happens.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. Mechie, you need someone who is going to be healthy and be out there. As much as I'd love to take the swing on upside, you kind of got to cap it at one point. So I think Watson, people love Watson.
The athleticism is supreme.
It's insane. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's do it. Let's go with Watson.
All right. We're taking Christian Watson at 48. So the Bears have now, or us, we are Ryan Poles, Jake and I are. We have just snagged Jalen Petrae, cornerback from Baylor, and wide receiver Christian Watson. If you have opinions on our picks, shoot us a DM on the Instagram and on the Twitter, Bears Nation Podcast at Instagram and Bears Nation Pod on Twitter, or send us an email, bearsnationpodcast@gmail.com. If you hate what we just did, as we approach the third round pick here, pick number 71, the Bears have it, and we just took a wide receiver, but we know about some of these other wide receivers that we like in these rounds, that being Calvin
Austin's still there.
Justin Ross, whose ADP is 76.7. There are the Alec Pierce lovers. I am not one of them right now. That could change. I would not be upset going back-to-back wide receivers here with Calvin Austin. I would not. What are your opinions? Do they need another position, that being most likely interior offensive line?
Yeah, I would probably go lineman here and then hope that, because the way that this is dropping a little bit, like the fact that Austin's still here at 71, the fact that Kevin Austin is still there, the fact that Ross is still there.
The fact that Pierce is there. People
right.
think Pierce is an early second rounder.
People love Pierce. Yeah. So I think you take offensive line here. I think that you have a shot to get a good wide receiver like a Ross in the next round.
Well, the problem you face here in the third round is you don't get another pick until the fifth round.
Oh,
so
true.
That's where you talk about the potential of the Bears trading down. I think if you saw that right here in the third round and you say, let's just trade down maybe to 78 with the Browns or 79 with the Chargers, 77 with the Vikings, collect potentially a fourth round pick or another fifth. And then, I don't know. Then you have that third round pick at 79 plus a fourth rounder and an early, and then you'd have 3 fifth rounders just to trade down 7 spots. I think this would be the spot to do it. What do you think?
I mean, it depends on how far you want to move down.
I think if you trade, so here, you're not going to trade with the Vikings at 77. You're just not going to do it.
Won't you? Why not? In this late? It's not like it's the first or second round.
I don't think you would want to trade with the division rival if that division rival is on the phone with you saying, hey, we really like Calvin Austin or we really like someone else. I would prefer, PFF here has the Giants as interested at 81, which would be 10 slots lower than your third round pick at 71. So they would trade. I'm trying to figure out how to do this. The Bears would trade 71 and they would get in return 81 and then 112, which would be, that's in the fourth round. And that's funny. That pick is from the Bears
so you get your own pick back.
You'll get your own pick back via and let's
say
we'll give them a 7th rounder.
No, why?
Okay, we'll try. Because this trade, if you're watching, this trade is a 76% chance. This was accepted. Cool. Okay.
Yeah.
So we just traded down. We traded down to 81 with the Giants. Let's resume the draft. The Bears have a good chance of still getting a good interior offensive lineman, and they've acquired a 4th round pick, which could be prime for our guy, Justin Ross. Dylan Parham just went. Calvin Austin just went. Alec Pierce just went.
Now here's the run on wide receivers.
Here's the run on wide receivers. So this is where you take interior offensive lineman, and this might be the spot where you take Cole Strange.
I agree. He's got good size. I know coming from Chattanooga, people are like, but if that's, 6'5", 305, like that's a man right there. Like you need someone who can just absolutely maul guys that he's going against.
Yeah, PFF talks about his elite explosiveness for interior offensive linemen.
Which remember, that's what Poles said he wanted. He wanted athletes, guys that were quick, guys that can move. So that's going to be something. I'm good with taking Strange here.
This feels surgical. I feel like we were just very surgical with what we did. So we're going to take Cole Strange here at 81. So the positive now is you have now fulfilled your top 3 position of needs. And I think at this point, you can go for a sort of, I think wide receiver is still position of need as we approach that pick 112 that we acquired from the Giants. But you're more comfortable, just taking really good players at these points, guys who are really good, whether that be safety, whether it be edge, linebacker, you're comfortable just taking guys here. So the interesting thing here,
David Bell just went at the end of the third round. David Bell
just went. Justin Ross has to be available. All right. 4th round, pick 112. This has to be our guy, Justin Ross.
I think so too.
It has to be. So
I think so too. With an average ADP of in the 70s and you get him in the 110s, I agree. I mean, we might be biased because we're really into Justin Ross. We have been if you've been listening to the show. Like, I think you got to take it. That was fun. I think it's Ross here. If he's available, it's Ross.
It has to be Ross. And it's like the note card from that movie Draft Day with Kevin Costner. Have you seen that movie?
No, Kevin, because I value my time.
Great movie, but there's it's a famous meme. He goes through this whole thing, and he thinks about drafting all these different players. But on that little post-it note he wrote on the beginning of draft night was it's this guy, the guy in the movie, no matter what. For us, it's Justin Ross, no matter what. Even if you think it's a little bit lofty to take him.
I think this is a great spot to get him. You were making the case last week for him in the second round.
I was. Now it's just weird because again, the injury history is what is going to cause him to fall. And there's going to be people who, when they see this, if the Bears do end up taking Justin Ross in the 4th round, who are saying, was it worth the risk that you run? I think it is worth the risk that you run because this could be a 1st round talent. And we talked about that all last episode. If you want to hear a breakdown of Justin Ross, it's also on our Instagram. We did sort of a little clip on that. He has the potential, if healthy, if that explosiveness and full speed is still there, to be a 1st round talent. That is the guy Jake and I will die on the hill for in the 2022 NFL draft. And we're going to take him.
And even if you don't want to go back and listen, a quick synopsis is like, Justin Fields is your priority right now. Right. Putting Justin Fields in the best position to succeed is your priority, especially if you're Matt Eberflus and Ryan Poles. Justin Fields is the best chance for you to keep your jobs 5-6 years down the line. They know that. You have to take this. You took a wide receiver earlier, you do it again. You double down because you don't know what Byron Pringle and Equanimeous St. Brown are. Like I said earlier in this episode, a couple minutes ago, you have Justin Fields. Everything else is just about that.
Right. Yeah, and that was the approach to this draft was, look, to the offseason. We have to put Justin Fields in the best position possible. They have the ability to do that here. I think Justin Ross is looking at the other players on the board who might be available. Cal Phillips, UCLA, Danny Gray, SU, Romeo Doubs, Nevada, Kevin Austin Jr., who's kind of your guy from Notre Dame. I still think Justin Ross is the best of all of them. And it's not even close.
He has the most upside, no doubt.
And the gap between him and the next best guy after him, Josh Johnson, could be the biggest gap of all time. Let's take Justin Ross at 112. All right. So we have 3 picks remaining. I'll move this a little bit faster because we're getting to those 5th round picks. But again, at this point, so you have 2 wide receivers, an offensive lineman. You have Jalen Petrae, cornerback, Christian Watson, wide receiver, Cole Strange, offensive lineman, and wide receiver. That we just took Justin Ross. This is a point where now you have a back-to-back. You have 2 picks here. You have 148, and then you don't have a back-to-back. You have 148, then you have Panthers at 149, then you have the Bears again at 150. What's the approach here? Is this where you maybe take, Jake, hear me out, is this where you maybe take a running back? Because David Montgomery is entering a contract year next year in which he will not get an extension. He will not get the contract he's looking for from the Chicago Bears. Do they try to get that guy to pair with Khalil Herbert? 2 players on a rookie contract for the next 3 years. If they drafted a running back, I would not rule out the possibility of Bears going running back with either of these 5th round picks.
Yeah, I still think you need to address DB just because you're so thin there. I mean, I don't hate the idea of going running back because this is David Montgomery's 4th year, yes?
Yep. So he's going. So this
is his final year.
Will be the contract year.
This is his final year. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I don't hate the idea. I still think that knowing that you have David Montgomery there, you're good for this year, and Khalil Herbert, you feel good enough about to get you to the next draft. You know what I mean? So I feel like it's not super necessary unless you love someone, unless there is someone where you're like, okay, this guy, he's way too low. We think he can be a starter eventually. Because this is the league now. I mean, running backs are a dime a dozen. Running backs, you can pick them off the street for nothing. And, I mean, look at where half the running backs in the league came from. I mean, they were late round picks or free agent acquisitions. Like it's, they were signed off the street. It's, I mean, Raheem Mostert was one of those prime examples of that. And he's hurt all the time, but regardless, I digress. I don't think you have to. I mean, I think you have to go DB still. I like that's just such a thin room, especially with guys who are always hurt too.
Okay. I agree with you, but I do think running back in the 7th, maybe obviously
Sure.
undrafted, is something you have to look at. Among the players available for us here at 148 are Josh Joby, Jalen Watson, Deron Blandon, and Caleb Evans. Josh Joby is a player who here his ADP is 123.8. The Bears are picking at 148. I think this could be a player who's a little bit older. He has experience from Alabama. The problem is, when I mentioned a little older, he's a lot older. He's 24. What would you feel like getting a Josh Joby or any of the other guys here? Darion Kendrick from Georgia is a name that I like. Sean Jolly from Appalachian State. You're dead set on corner. Who do you like at 148?
Yeah, I think you're probably going to take a swing on, an SEC, either Joby or, Kendrick here because, it's not Toledo. It's not Appalachian State. Like no disrespect to those guys.
Valid.
You want to know that they've gone against that kind of hired. And if you're going to take a swing, maybe that's where you take the swing. And again, like we said at the beginning of this, we have not done deep dives on all these guys. Like, I don't know, sue me. I don't know that much about Sean Jolly and Appalachian State's defense. I don't. It's just what my eyeballs.
You don't know a lot about Deron Bland from Fresno State. Jake
exactly. Sorry, sue me. But I would lean more towards someone coming from Alabama or Georgia's defense, just because we know they have success there.
I really like Darion Kendrick. I do. We have I Am Scotts in the chat saying he really likes Jalen Watson from Washington State. But the thing that you always like to see from players, and that's listed here for PFF, is the production that they have in the biggest moments in the biggest games. And here, 2 interceptions versus Michigan in the semifinal, 0 catches allowed from 3 targets versus Alabama in the national championship. Granted, that Alabama team in 2021 national championship did not have Jameson Williams or John Mechie. So if you want to look at it that way, but Darion Kendrick is also 21. He's not 24. I would be fine taking Darion Kendrick here. He's also could be available at 150, but that would be, but okay. So would you take back-to-back cornerbacks? Do you take, because when you have picks so close to each other, you start to think I
think you take another lineman.
Get that guy.
I think you go DB and lineman here.
All right, so let's just go Darion Kendrick for the hell of it, and then we'll go one more IOL here. Let's see who's available for them. Joshua Williams, we got the Joshuas. Joshua Azidu and Lecitus Smith from Virginia Tech, the top 3. I like Lecitus Smith. He's a guy that I think is pretty solid. Who do you like among the 3? Do you care? Do you even know Joshua Pazabuzura?
I mean, 6'3", 314. That's a big boy.
So if you got Cole Strange and Lecitus Smith, you got some big guys, man, who are coming in.
Fine with me. I mean, you need linemen. Like, you just need bodies here at this point. Like, you need younger guys that you can control for the next 3-4 years, because right now it's a very patchwork offensive line.
Right.
Like, you just need bodies at this point.
And again, you talk about faster play, or more athletic players and more explosive players across the board, offensively and defensively for the Bears. Lecitus Smith was a tight end before transitioning to guard. His weight may not reflect that at 14, but you talk about that style of athleticism on the line, and he sort of plays with that. Let's go Lecitus Smith, and then should we just pick the guy with the coolest name? We might have to, and I. Might have to. I'm dumb. I keep saying 7th round pick. Pick 7. In the 6th round. Pick 7.
All right. So what do you go here?
I think.
Do you just go best player available? This might be a chance where you take a running back.
That's what I'm saying. That's what.
Quandre White's a pretty cool name.
Khalil Herbert was in the 6th round, was he not?
Yes, I believe so. I believe he was.
I believe he was. So this would be back-to-back years taking a running back in the 6th round, and I'm totally okay with that. I really like Hassan Haskins from Michigan, but he would be sort of a reach. I don't know. His ADP is 175. His rank on PFF is 189. Jake, Hassan Haskins scored 5 touchdowns against Ohio State in the most important game for that team.
Works for me.
Very, very long time.
Yeah. Yeah.
You remember that? I mean, that
I do.
Now you'll remember Hassan Haskins.
6'2", 230. Good Lord.
And he's also a very good receiving back.
We haven't taken any Big Ten guys. Let's do it.
We got to take a Big Ten guy.
We deserve it.
And again, we're taking Hassan Haskins here. That rounds out our draft. And before we recap it, I'll say, back to the point, this is very, very important to remember, and no one's talking about it, is the fact that we will hit on every time this show. Running backs aren't getting paid. Dave Montgomery isn't going to get paid. He's just not. And that's the opinion that Jake and I have. And it's a pretty valid opinion when you look at the historical evidence of the NFL in recent years. So they might take a running back for that reason. If you don't want to bank on Khalil Herbert and an undrafted guy and Darrington Evans as a PFF ad comes onto the screen before we get our full results, then you got to take somebody in the 6th round. So let's recap the draft that we just did. Jake
it's
and I,
pretty good. We got enough.
We got enough for Darian Kendrick. We kind of took a look.
Took a little bit of a reach.
We got a little bit lost there. Let's
I mean, overall draft grade though, B+. I feel
good.
Pretty good about that.
And if we didn't get that F from Darian Kendrick, it's probably an A+.
Probably an A,
plus. But let's go over it. Round 2, pick 39. We take Jalen Petrae from Baylor. We love that pick. Jake, you would also grade that an A?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I mean, he's graded as a first-round talent. I'm perfectly fine with that.
Round 2, pick 48. Christian Watson at North Dakota State. To kind of give a little perspective, we did have John Mechie and we did have Jalen Tolbert available. We chose Christian Watson over both of them. We're given a B for that. I would also rate that sort of like a B+, honestly, based off the way he's trending. That could be an A if people really do think he's the first-round talent that he is vaulting towards at this moment. And then in the 3rd round, I think we see something that I think is very, very likely. We trade our pick 71 to the New York Giants. We get that pick back that we traded for Justin Fields, which would be amazing. And we move down to 81 and we receive pick 112 in the 4th round. And then at pick 81, we take a fan favorite for the Chicago Bears fan base from Chattanooga, Cole Strange, big behemoth, but also an athlete, very explosive. That was graded a B. Jake, what would you grade that?
Yeah, I mean, I like it. I think it was good value. It was about where he was ranked. So yeah, I mean, to get him, a guy of his size and explosiveness, 1,000%, I think that was great.
And then as a surprise, absolutely nobody, we take Justin Ross, wide receiver at pick 112 in round 4 that we got from the Giants. Now this was rated as C+ by PFF, but I think it's because Jake and I are higher on Justin Ross than basically everyone.
Well, I think it's also the injury concerns because you don't know exactly who he's going to be. So I think that kind of weighs into that grade as well.
And I think if you're getting Justin Ross anywhere earlier than like a late 5th rounder, he's going to have that grade because that risk is a factor. Now let's go to pick 148. We got kind of position of need happy here. And we also don't have our full analysis on the guys at that point of the draft. But we like Darian Kendrick from what he did in the biggest moments. We were graded an F with our first pick of the 5th round at pick 148.
Oh, well.
What are you going to do? And then we like Lessita Smith. This is a B+ grade. This is one of our higher graded players. And I think one of our better picks at pick 150, a guy who would pair really well with Cole Strange, who's also a former tight end, very athletic. And then we rounded out with Hassan Haskins, a guy who's done it again in the biggest moments, 5 touchdowns against Ohio State, receiving back, has the ability to come in and be an instant producer, just as Khalil Herbert was last year, assuming Dave Montgomery won't even be here next year, but also, forget about 2023, talk about 2022. Hassan Haskins is a guy that can do it. Overall, Jake, evaluate the draft for us in a couple minutes.
B+ I think is solid. I mean, I don't remember what grade we had last year. We probably should have kept track of that, but B+ is solid. I mean, I think we made a shrewd move with the trade. I think we took a lot of good value, especially at the top with Petrae. I think set us up really good for the rest of the draft. And getting Justin Ross in the 4th, I think was great for us too. So really happy. I mean, if this is how this shakes out, with maybe a better pick at 148 than we did, if this is how this shakes out for the most part, I think most of us, if not all of us, are going to walk away happy.